We're going to start with groups. So if you're in a particular course shell, like I said, if you're in your sandbox or in a live course, it's all the same. To access the groups tool, what you'll do is go to the course tools menu and you'll go to the groups option here. If you haven't created groups in a particular course shell that you're in, then it'll look like this, no defined groups yet. And so what we do to get started is we will always click on this new category button. It's kind of weird that it's called category. Really, what we're doing is we're defining the reason for the groups. So when we give this thing a name, again, this might be group work for a particular assignment. If this is for assignment 1 in your class, then I would call it assignment 1. The group names themselves will all have separate names that you can either personalize or customize, or just leave sort of numbered groups 1 through 10. So let's say I have a reason to set up groups, a particular assignment. We'll call it assignment 1. I would give this the title here. Now, usually I would skip description, but because we're doing things now fully online, at least for the next little while, you could actually provide some additional context here with the description. However, I'll point out that if you do enter something in the description here, like these are the teams that you'll be working with for blank assignment. If you're providing instructions saying, here's how I want you to coordinate and get together and share files, etc. If you decide to use this description area here, it's actually not immediately visible to students. You'd have to scroll down a little further. You go to the advanced properties area. For you, it might still have been collapsed, but you can always click show advanced properties. And what you would do then is you would check this box that says make category and group descriptions visible to group members. Typically, this description was more for sort of instructors just to understand what the purpose for the group is. But if you're going to be using this to communicate or set expectations, then in a fully online world, I think that makes sense. Just make sure that you check the box down below as well. So the groups tool is going to provide you with 3 different ways that you can get these groups populated. Basically, how do you want the members to be assigned? 3 high-level ways, and then there's some more definition that you can provide. So the 3 high-level ways that you can have groups populated. Number 1 is just random auto-enrollment. You could basically have the system just take your full class list and shuffle them up and spread them evenly among those groups. So there's an auto-enrollment option. Option number 2, and these are in no particular order, is self-enrollment. You could have students enroll themselves. During this workshop, I'm going to demonstrate what that self-enrollment workflow looks like. And number 3 is just manual. The expectation that the system's not going to do it for you. It's not going to pick randomly. You have a particular set of groups in mind, and you have the ability then to just manually put the students into groups. Now, I'll say that with any of those 3 options that you choose, the first one being auto or random, second one being self-enrollment, with those 2 options, you still have the ability to manually adjust. It's not like those are locked in and you no longer have any control. If you set up self-enrollment, you can still have students maybe get that wrong, or you decide you don't want certain people together, you would have the ability to manually move a person from one group to another. So you're never really locked in with those, but it'll just depend on what makes sense for you. Fastest and easiest way for you to again, get these groups set up. I'm gonna show you one of the self-enrollment options here, because I also wanna demonstrate what the student side of that would be. But you'll notice when I drop down this menu for enrollment type that the no auto enrollments version, that would be the manual one. These 2 options here, which say groups of number and number of groups, just a different way of setting up how many groups exist and whether or not there are restrictions on the size. Both of these, though, would be the system then randomly assigning students for you. And one last thing I'll say about that is that when you set this up, if a new student is added to your class tomorrow, the default setting is that they will be randomly put into a group. So it's not like it just shuffles the people who are in the class at this moment in time and then never double checks. New students who are enrolled or transfer into your section, etc., would then be placed in a group. And like I said, there are these 3 different self-enrollment options depending on how you want to restrict the number of groups or the size of the group. So I'm going to say number of groups, and let's say I just wanted to have 10 groups. Actually, that's too many for the example that I've got here. Let's say I have 3 groups. Even again, after I create this, if I realize I need a 4th group, I can create that. If I end up with too many, that's fine. So you're not totally locked in, but in this creation process, you'll just try to get approximately the right number with the style of enrollment that you want. Group prefix I would skip. And if you scroll down to the very bottom, there's a section for additional options. If you knew you were going to have a group discussion, if you knew you were going to have a group assignment, you could potentially create these in the moment now as well. But I'm actually going to skip doing this because I want to show people how you can create a group discussion or how you can create a group assignment after the groups are already created. You don't have to rely on this particular creation screen in the groups tool. You might have inherited a course that already had groups, but now you want to do a new discussion. Now you want to do a new assignment. So I would rather just show you the way that you can always create one after the group exists. So really on this screen, as we created a new reason for a group, we gave it the title. We might have provided some context or instructions for students. We figure out how we wanted the enrollments to go, how many groups we might need. And if I click save now, it'll basically create that framework for the groups. So because especially they were self-enrollment, there are no members in any of these groups yet, but you can see that it has created 3 of them for me because that's how many I said I wanted.